we didn't think that the setup in that particular unit was age appropriate because the majority of those individuals who were unaccompanied passing through it last year were teenagers.
Hello then, I do hope you're all well. And let's watch honest Robert Jenrick lying, and I think I can prove it. On Tuesday in the House of Commons, Immigration Minister, our honest Bob, was asked this interesting question.
Thank the Immigration Minister for giving way. He's obviously being pressed on the nature of the kind of accommodation or detention that children and young people will be held in. But the spirit behind the Minister's intention does matter. So therefore, can he explain, is it true that he gave orders to the Asylum Reception Centre to paint over children's cartoons? And if so, why? Because nobody believes that Mickey Mouse cartoons either encourage or deter boats to arrive, and they simply think that this is the Minister actually not showing some common decency towards vulnerable children.
I've been
This will be an interesting answer then. No doubt it'll be just as mealy-mouthed as the one he gave to Hilary Benn, won't it?
clear in answer to her right honourable friend that we provide very high quality care at all of the centres in which we support unaccompanied children. We didn't think that the setup in that particular unit was age appropriate because the majority of those individuals who were unaccompanied passing through it last year were teenagers.
Now, on Monday in the House of Lords, Simon Murrey was asked about this situation as well, and this was his reply.
Has just said that the government takes the welfare of unaccompanied children seriously. How does that relate to the arrival centre in Dover, which had cartoons and welcoming signs for children, and which were ordered to be removed by the Home Office Minister because it might make the children feel too welcome? Isn't that a disgrace? And isn't it time that government backbenchers felt as embarrassed as we are that this is happening in our country?
The murals that the Noble Lord refers to were provided by our detention contractors and were not commissioned or approved by the Home Office. It's clearly the correct decision that these facilities have the requisite decoration befitting their purpose.
So two very different answers to a situation on two different days by two different ministers, so to speak. So who's right? Well, on LBC yesterday, James O'Brien took a call from a guy who knew the guy who painted the murals.
I actually met the guy that painted those murals.
Really?
Yeah. I was working, I'm going to be very careful what I say, but I was working down there as a contractor. We were working in the same building. I'm actually a healthcare professional, and I was working down there. I was delighted to see the guy. He was an absolute craftsman. He was a sign writer by trade, and he painted them all by hand, and they were just spectacular. To cover those paintings up would have taken layers and layers and layers of paint because they were very, very bright, let me tell you. And to cover them would have literally, I still think you'd probably see the pictures behind them.
Oh, God.
I actually saw kids' faces light up when they saw those pictures, which was quite interesting.
But there weren't any kids. There weren't any kids there, Paul. They were all teenagers, mate.
Well, they were, but we'll leave that there because they just can't talk honestly. One of the points I'd like to make, and this is a little bit cynical, but I think it's important, he says that it was commissioned by the private company that was down there, which, all right, it probably was. However, that private company was being funded by the government.
Yes.
So whatever happened, the guy rightly who did the paintings was paid for out of the coffers of the taxpayer. So, actually, you know...
I mean, you've added an extra dimension to the conversation, haven't you? Because it's almost now turning into whose lie was more stupid, the bloke in the House of Lords or the bloke in the House of Commons. So the claim it was the detention contractors that did it. So, by your account, a supremely talented sign writer comes in by accident.
Yeah, absolutely.
To do some murals with some cartoon characters.
He was rightly commissioned to do those murals. So yeah, he was paid for, rightly so.
Someone turned up. Who the hell did this? Who are you? What are you doing? Put that paintbrush down. What's going on? I mean, it is just laughable, isn't it?
It's crazy because actually, I mean, and this is just being absolutely cold and cynical.
Go on.
You know, it was paid for out of public money.
Of course.
So actually, you know, who actually had the right to turn around and say, take it down? It's absurd.
It's obscene.
Absolutely.
Actually. I mean, it's both. It's absurd if you see it through the sort of lens of the story. It's obscene if you see it through the eyes of the children.
You couldn't make it up.
Well, no, I didn't. As you know, Emma says, as soon as they realised the optics they'd aimed for, which is the performative cruelty, the cruelty is the point, had completely backfired. They had a crisis meeting, brainstormed as many reasons for it as they could, and they're just so incompetent. They didn't stop to pick one to run with and ended up offering up two completely different answers in different chambers of the Houses of Parliament. It is quite incredible. Does it make it... I mean, I don't want you to be indiscreet or to disclose more information than you want to, but in a scenario where traumatised children are arriving, presumably things like this can make quite a big difference.
Well, I don't have a psychology background,
right.
But, you know, what I did see was faces light up and people become relaxed. So, you know, I think what we have to have is an environment that is appropriate and fit the purpose, and, you know, one that is welcoming. Yeah, welcoming, not necessarily we must rush here to see these great paintings.
No, of course.
Like we go off to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. But, you know, let's have it so it's...
Just doesn't feel like a prison or an institution.
Absolutely, you know, and I think that's not unreasonable, is it?
No, it's not unreasonable. But you add, as I say, another question to the list this morning, which is not just how did they end up with two? How come they couldn't even get their story straight? But whose story was stupidest?
Very interesting, wasn't it? Now, for all I know, the guy could have been telling porkies and may never have ever met the guy. But he did sound quite credible, didn't he? But not long after, James O'Brien received a very persuasive call from a young lady who you could say was backing up what Simon Murrey was saying. Well, sort of.
Hi, James. I'm so glad you're covering this again today. It's just awful, and it really does show up what the Home Office is doing in a way that I think other things do.
Yes.
I think that Simon Murray is telling the truth.
Right.
So this is going to be a bit weird, but bear with me. Don't interrupt me.
I won't.
I think that the reason they've taken the murals down, he's right, they weren't commissioned by the Home Office. They were commissioned by the people that the Home Office contracts the running of these centres to. And those people are going to have to carry out the Home Office policies towards those children, some of which we would think are quite inhumane. So from the Home Office's point of view, they can't have the staff showing sympathy or humanising these kids in any way, because that may mean that they'll refuse to do what they're asked to do later on, possibly drag them onto planes to Rwanda, anything like that. So I think that it's targeted at the staff, not the children. Those murals and signs are evidence of the staff's sympathy and empathy for those kids.
So we've got the contract to run... As opposed to decorate, because he said detention contractors, didn't he? He didn't say decorating contractors.
He didn't say decorating contractors.
Oh, you're good. So they call them in and they say, well, let's put some nice murals on the wall. And someone perhaps at the meeting might say, well, that's going to eat into our profits. And someone else would say, well, so what? Come on. It's a few murals. These kids have been to hell and back. Let's put some murals. So they go ahead and do it.
Welcome signs in their own
and some welcome signs in their own languages. And then honest Bob Jenrick turns up and says, no, you can't be doing that.
You shouldn't be thinking of these people like this. Well, they're not. The whole language coming out of the Home Office is to dehumanise.
I think you've got it. So we think that Simon Murrey might be telling the truth.
Yeah, I think he's telling the truth.
Well, sort of telling the truth, because they still... It's still not a reason to take them down, is it? It's not, because what he's trying to convey in that answer to Alf Dubs is the idea that because they were unauthorised, then they had no choice but to take them down. So I think your analysis
is... I think he's kind of brushing over the really horrible bit and not saying that quite out loud. But I don't think he's lying that reason they were taken down is because that's not the purpose of the detention centre. The staff shouldn't be showing sympathy and affection or empathy towards those children. And having murals there is going to change the welcome that the people are given. You know, if you're working in a place with friendly, child-friendly murals and welcoming signs, when the kids come in, you'll be like, oh, hello, you know, what can we do? Rather than, right, you in the corner, blah, or whatever.
Yeah, of course, get in the back of the van.
It's a completely different atmosphere.
Oh, dear. Yeah, so that
horrible,
means it is horrible, actually, and it does that. So that means your vote for Mug of the Day goes to Jenrick rather than Murray, does it?
Well, Jenrick's the only one telling a lie, so I think.
Yes, or at least there's not even a kernel of truth in what Robert Jenrick is claiming. Whereas with the other fellow, you've got that
half a truth.
Perfectly plausible theory that it was actually an independent decision taken, which the Home Office then disapproved of for the reasons you describe. It's not as if there's some sort of contractual breach that forces them to take them down. Tony, thank you. It was worth improving your phone line. I think that's the sharpest analysis, perhaps.
She was very good, wasn't she? So, who's lying? Robert Jenrick or Simon Murrey? Or is it both? My money's on Jenrick, if you want my honest opinion. But let me know down below. Tell me what you think. Also, if you've made it this far and you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Always helps. Also, if you're into this sort of stuff where House of Commons and whatever happens in select committee meetings, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. What harm can it do? So, anyway, I shall leave this video here and I shall bid you farewell and take care.